I'd like to start off by saying thank you to the U.S. Grains Council for giving us the opportunity to speak today. Of course, my name is Florentino Lopez with the United Sorghum Checkoff program. We sure do miss you here on our farms this year. I know this year has had a lot of challenges. I know those challenges have stopped many of you from visiting here in the United States, but we wanted to really make sure that we were able to share more about what was going on closer to the farms and giving you a little bit better idea of not only what is happening on the farm, but what you can expect from U.S. sorghum this year. Of course, again, I'd like to thank you for joining us, and I'd like to share a lot more information as we move forward. My goal today, more than anything, is to give you a little bit of background, not only from a production standpoint, but also a little bit more about supply and demand here this year. Of course, sorghum is very much moving throughout the year. As we look down in South Texas, of course, that crop has now been harvested. Most of that crop has already left the country. It has already gotten to many locations throughout the world. We expect harvest to continue to occur in Kansas and northern Texas as we progress into the November timeframe. Again, look forward to visiting a lot more throughout this time that we have with you. But I hope that you enjoy this video, and I hope that you have some excellent questions for us at the end.
Let's get started. As we discussed, there are several areas that I wanted to talk to you today about. Definitely wanted to give you a little bit more information about USCP, the United Sorghum Checkoff program, a little bit about general information of sorghum, what's new and exciting, of course, the many uses of sorghum, a little bit about the current year's PS&D, and also about next year's PS&D. Also give you some insight on the many resources that you can find not only at sorghumcheckoff.com, but also at simplysorghum.com. Also, I, of course, will want to give you a little bit of a wrap-up. And please remember, make sure that you're writing down your questions for the Q&A that will be live after this recording. The Sorghum Checkoff is a new program. This program was really started about 11 years ago. The program is fully funded by U.S. sorghum producers. So U.S. sorghum producers pay dollars into the program. Those dollars are actually utilized for a variety of different items. Mainly, the goal, more than anything from the program, is to spend dollars on research, promotion, and information. Of course, you benefit greatly from these programs as well. It's very helpful in giving you insight on how to better utilize sorghum. As well, it gives a little bit more information to producers on how they can continue to produce higher quality sorghum, as well as more sorghum to fit your growing needs. The Sorghum Checkoff's real mission is to continue to help producers maximize their potential and their market opportunities. The program, of course, is always constantly working with a variety of other different programs. One of those areas that we work with is the sponsors, or the people that are putting this meeting together, the U.S. Grains Council. The U.S. Grains Council, along with the Sorghum Checkoff, work hand in hand in trying to develop new marketplaces. The U.S. Grains Council has been a wonderful asset to sorghum producers in helping grow a dynamic marketplace internationally, as well as making sure that information continues to flow out to end users in multiple countries. A little bit on the quality report. The U.S. Grains Council did a quality report last year. That quality report was for the 2019-2020 sorghum crop. Although we know that the quality of grain leaving the country is extremely good, it's great to have an opportunity to put a report together of kind of what's going on in the industry as a whole. One of the things that is constantly being looked at on the quality report is not only looking at protein, starch, the oil content, and foreign matter and beyond, but also some of those areas that maybe you're not as familiar with, like the tannin level. Of course, we've always indicated that U.S. sorghum is free or low in tannin levels. And of course, this report again indicates that very point. So rest assured that the sorghum being produced in the U.S. is low tannin or no tannin sorghum. One of the interesting parts, of course, also is looking at the protein level on the quality report from 1920. The protein level on the aggregate samples averaged 10.5%. As well, the aggregate for starch averaged 71.9%. The really interesting part is, of all of the samples that were collected, all of the samples aggregated together indicated that U.S. sorghum was really, most of the samples were representative of USDA grade 1 sorghum. Of course, nutrient values are extremely important as we feed animals or livestock. And there's a variety of different places that you can look at the nutrient values associated with sorghum. Of course, the NRC tables here in the US generally indicate that the sorghum value is slightly below 97-98% the value of maize. If you look at the feed charts or the feed tables that are generally from France or other areas, those values tend to put sorghum pretty much hand to hand with maize. Oftentimes we find that the nutrient value for sorghum is very comparable to the nutrient value of maize and could be exchanged one for one as you're feeding animals. Moving on, one of the things that I wanted to touch on that's really important to us, as we talked about research earlier and the Sorghum Checkoff, we have been investing a large amount of dollars overall on technologies that are about to come out over the next year or so. We have been developing grass and weed control technologies in germplasm that would help farmers control weeds and grasses better. The reason that we want to make sure that you're up to speed on these, all of those technologies were developed with non-GMO type technology. So again, these technologies that are going to be coming out in seed are derived from non-GMO techniques. The U.S. sorghum continues to maintain its non-GMO standard. As we look at it, the other exciting benefit from these technologies is it's going to help our farmers maintain cleaner fields by being able to control those grasses and weeds. Of course, you benefit as well. You're able to benefit by having less weed seed, less grass seed that may be mixed in with your sorghum. So this also is a benefit directly to you. By having these new technologies, we believe that that will even provide more incentive for that farmer to utilize this type of new technologies, thus even making that foreign material below that standard, even beyond where it is today. We feel that there's an opportunity to utilize sorghum in many different manners. Of course, mainly it's always been used in livestock feed, both here domestically in the U.S. as well as internationally. We continue to use it here in the U.S. in the poultry side, It is being widely used in the swine industry here in the U.S. as well as internationally. Aquaculture is a new area for us. It's something that has just recently started to develop. We are doing several trials here in the U.S. utilizing sorghum. Those diets were produced to feed several different species. Those aquaculture studies are not complete yet, but once they are complete, that information will be available for you to utilize. One of the key items in all of these areas is making sure that it's processed well. Of course, industrial, we do utilize sorghum in a variety of industrial methods. One of the most widely used, of course, is ethanol. We have found that sorghum and corn respond very well to the ethanol industry. Insulation, we have a company here in the States that has started to produce a puff product that is utilized for insulation. Packing peanuts as well as cat litter are a couple of other areas that have been utilized. Specialty continues to grow here in the States. We notice that there's a variety of pet feeds or pet foods that are being produced utilizing sorghum as well as many different treats, not only for cats, but also for dogs. Of course, food products, including spirits and beer, continue to increase in the States. We have many different beer companies that are utilizing sorghum, and spirits, of course, not only here domestically, but also internationally continue to increase. Let's talk a little bit about production, supply, and demand. Of course, on the chart that you see on production, you'll notice that production from 2015-16 has decreased somewhat up until this time of 2020 and 2021. A lot of that is attributed to the decrease in amount of sorghum that was purchased from China or on the international side. Of course, this year we saw 9 million metric tons. That 9 million metric tons, we believe, will increase in the year to come based on the opportunities that have occurred with the international side, with a lot more growth on the export market. Again, the average over the last 5 years has been 9.7 million metric tons. We believe that that will continue to remain constant, as well as provide a little bit more of an increase overall. I did want to talk about the 2020 and 2021 remaining supply. First off, of course, that supply carryover was really about almost 1 million metric ton. The current production of 9.07 million metric ton really created a total supply of about 9.98 million metric ton for the current marketing year. If we talk about demand overall, demand on the export shipped has been at 1.78 million metric tons. Export, or the outstanding sales, remains at 2.46 million metric ton. Domestic use is about 2.79 million metric ton. So if we looked at the remaining supply and we subtracted the supply versus the demand, I calculate that we have a minimum available amount of about 3.75 million metric tons to a maximum of 5.74 million metric tons. All of those are constantly changing and change week to week. Depending on the price, there could be more available that would not be used here internally or in the US, could be available for shipment, and or there could be less dependent on the actual supply or what farmers may hold back for themselves and not sell at the current time. If you want sorghum, you better get out there, you better be buying it. There isn't that much available. So I still believe that that total amount will be reduced significantly as harvest continues to occur in Kansas. On this, the key there is looking at the traditional demand and today's demand. The traditional demand has always been represented roughly by a third going into the export market, a third going into the feed industry, a third going into the industrial, and really an amount somewhere around that 5% looking at food and seed. In today's market, we continue to maintain that food and seed of about 5%. Feed and industrial have changed dramatically. Of course, as the export value continues to change, we will continue to see an increase in the amount that goes into the export market. Visit sorghumcheckoff.com and simplysorghum.com. Go to our podcast. We have Smart Talk, Sorghum Smart Talk, a podcast that you can find on those websites. We do have several videos that we've continued to produce. Part of those videos are VR or virtual. And as you can see from the slide, we do have headsets that have been sent out to a variety of different buyers. Those headsets are really to give you an opportunity to experience exactly what is going on, not only in harvest in South Texas, but also harvest in Kansas. We wanted to put these together, these videos together, to give you a better experience of being here, being on the farm. Also, I encourage you to continue to go back to the website, because we're going to be producing more of those virtual videos, giving you those experiences. Sorghum, U.S. Sorghum can really meet your operational needs. It's very interchangeable, it's very cost competitive, it has extensive use capabilities. Not only can it fit into the aquaculture industry, but it can fit into the pet food industry, it can fit into the swine industry, and can equally go into the dairy industry. Don't forget the industrial sector, don't forget those areas that are specialty. Sorghum has been a quality product, continues to be low in tannin, no tannin, continues to have high protein, high starch values, has a really good representation of nutrient quality overall. So we want to make sure that you take from sorghum all of those values. Of course, low incidence of mycotoxins, but you always want to be checking that. Sorghum remains non-GMO. Of course, as I talked earlier, new technologies are coming to the seed industry, but those technologies, again, are representative of non-GMO products. Again, thank you for considering U.S. Sorghum. Look forward to helping you in making your buying experiences positive and making you feel that farmers in the U.S. are here to help you out.
We really hope to see you here next year. Thank you.